Every spring, Channel 2 gets a chance to get out of the office and head out road tripping. This year, we decided to get off of the pavement and head out on the road less traveled. This year, I started the journey off in Southeast. We went on a Jeep safari, took a rugged hike, and learned how some residents in Metlakatla are trying to revive a dying language. Here's how we began our adventure. We're in Ketchikan right now, but our goal is to get to Metlakatla. There's just one small issue. We can only get there by plane or take a boat.
12-minute flight. It's not going to be too long. A little snug for a bit. Harness.
Here?
In the back right there, yep.
Okay.
One goes either side of it.
There are some parts of Alaska so beautiful and remote that most people will never see unless you take a ferry or a 12-minute float plane ride. We leave Ketchikan headed to Metlakatla, passing small islands, ships, rainforests. The day, beautiful and bright, spreads before us, and as we touch down on the other side, we realize this is no ordinary island.
Machlachatla di wil wadku. Lach giburi bt ero. Nuggets mask wadina guadu. Lach skik dipt echt. I see this is what our ancestors made for us. And it's our beautiful little part of the world.
We learn about Metlakatla, the only Indian reserve in Alaska, from our tour guide and artist, Davy Boxley. He's one of only 1,400 people who live here. He drives us around town, sharing its history and his obvious love for his home.
Metlakatla was founded in 1887 by a group of 823 Tsimshian people and their missionary named William Duncan. He came from Beverly, England.
William Duncan stayed here for the rest of his life, dying at the home the people made for him.
He converted quite a few people, and they decided to move to a location where he could get them away from the potlatching and the influences of the fort. Alcohol, firearms, disease, all of these things that were all introduced kind of at once for our people.
You might have noticed the totem poles we've been passing. Most of these were made by Davy's family. It's a tradition he continued, selling ones like this one to Disney or to the galleries in Seattle. The details are incredible, and so are the people each one honors. People who have been slowly dying over the years, taking with them something irreplaceable. Time to fix this crisis is running out.
Shimalagik is a dying language. We only have 5 fluent speakers left in our village right now.
Only 5. And the only ones left are more than 70 years old.
The bark has grown back over.
Candy McGilton is also an artist. Cedar trees are her medium.
It's about finding the right ones.
Candy and Davy pull strips like this off the tree. Each one can be no wider than the length of a hand.
Right now I'm doing a Z-twist, and it looks like the top of a Z, so they're going slanted that way. And again, I'm weaving in a clockwise motion.
The cedar becomes a basket, but the instructions to make one don't come in English.
It takes a lot of practice, but it's also a very beautiful language, and it's part of who I am. It's part of my identity, so I think it's very important for me and others to learn our language.
Candy and Davy started a nonprofit called the Hayek Foundation, where they're passing on the language and the culture as they learn it from the elders. As cedar becomes a basket, old becomes new. Fibers of 2 worlds woven to create a timeless connection to what was before, is now, and will soon be.
I would say that it's the most beautiful place on earth. You can't go anywhere on this island and not be in awe of its beauty.
A few of us locals call it Slowdovia.
One of the first things you learn when you get to Seldovia is you might as well slow down. Your cell phone probably not going to work. So the best thing to do is kick back and enjoy yourself.
There's a lot of wonderful places to hike. In the fall, berries are in abundance.
We arrived in Seldovia and quickly learned there was plenty to keep us busy.
There is a lot of outdoor trails, kayaking, bird watching is fabulous here.
You can catch a king salmon off the bridge.
But busy isn't what the folks who live here are necessarily looking for.
When my husband retired, we wanted to experience a real simpler lifestyle and connect with nature. This is it. Seldovia is a paradise for that.
Seldovia was originally settled by Alaska natives. Then it became a port for the Russians who came in search of sea otter pelts. Over the years, the taking of various natural resources has made for a boom and bust economy. Once a thriving port town with 7 canneries and up to 3,000 people, today it's a community of less than 500. And it's clear the people who live here love the lifestyle.
We're just a small community and try to live like Alaskans are supposed to live, I think. We have a lot of fun here. The ocean's right here. What a resource for some really healthy foods.
Even with the simpler life, Seldovia is looking for growth. But it's a challenge.
Our opportunity, our window is just 4 months, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, where we have a lot of commerce. And so it's hard to attract a business when there's only 4 months to make a living.
We seem to be getting a lot of people that work off computers, and they just come here. What a place to have a job like that.
So whether it's for work or for play, this small community has a lot to offer.
Seldovia is a wonderful place where you just feel like you can just lay back and relax. Nobody's in a hurry.
That was Tracy Sinclair and photojournalist Leah Schwartz slowing us down in Seldovia. When we come back, we're heading north on a road that is inhospitable for most of the year, but worth it if you can make the drive. You can definitely say this is the road less traveled because for most of the year you can't drive on it. Mike Ross and photojournalist Kim Danke take us down the Petersville Road. It starts in Trapper Creek with a little bit of Alaska history and a few bumps along the way.
A road less traveled? Try a road you can barely travel until it thaws and dries out. Wow. The Petersville Road, roughly 34 miles of mostly gravel, some deep mud holes, and spectacular views of Denali, along with some creek crossings that you might want to think twice about before driving in. Up ahead, the destination for a lot of travelers and treasure seekers, the Petersville Recreational Mining Area.
The state has set aside these areas for people who don't have or don't want to claim to just go out and find some gold and other stuff.
Then we got Kurt down here with a 3-inch dredge.
Every summer, gold seekers come here to try their luck, and there is gold to be found.
So here is some Dutch Hills gold. This is a 1/2 ounce, and that's a 3/4 ounce nugget. So this was just from, I think, a 5-gallon bucket. I was just messing around, you know.
No kidding.
Digging around. Not going to tell you where I got it, though.
Gold is the reason the Petersville Road exists. It was discovered here in 1905, and the rush was on.
Once they found the gold, how do we get all the supplies up there? How do we do it?
Miners blazed a wagon trail through the wilderness, but it was a rugged and sometimes deadly journey. The miners demanded action, and the Alaska Road Commission in the 1920s and 30s built much of the road route we see today.
My parents homesteaded just the next homestead down from here.
When he was a kid, Ben Porterfield remembers watching old sourdough miners heading down the road each spring.
And I'd hear these stories they had about, oh, I'm going to strike it rich this year. And then in the fall, on the way down, they'd stop in again, and they'd be all bearded and tattered, and they'd have a little jar of gold, and they'd be saying, well, I didn't do too good this year, but next year I know right where to go.
There is also mystery in these mountains. It's chronicled by the book The Mystery of the Cache Creek Murders by the late Roberta Sheldon. In 1939, a miner and his wife and a nearby miner and his employee were all murdered on the same day.
According to the book, it was the perfect murder because whoever did it got away with it. And we don't know if they got away with all the gold, too.
Dennis Garrett owns the land that once belonged to one of the murdered miners, who was rumored to have stashed his gold in a secret hiding place before his death.
Sometimes people come up and they ask me about it, and I say, well, if I knew where the cache of gold was first, I wouldn't tell you, you know.
Another bit of history along the trail, the Forks Roadhouse, built in the 1930s, a gathering spot for the community for decades, until fire destroyed it in 2012.
It was heartbreaking because with it went 40 years of memories.
We used to always come here when it burnt down. It was like, well, geez, we wondered what was going to happen to it.
So Brian Hulls and his wife and 2 friends decided to rebuild history. There's a new Forks Roadhouse open for business. Today, a lot of the people you meet along the Petersville Road have found a different kind of treasure.
It's simple.
Yeah, life is simple back here.
There are full and part-time residents who cherish the laid-back lifestyle they have found along this road.
You get up in the morning and you know you have your chores, but if they don't get done, that's okay too.
And even if it's just a weekend getaway from the big city to their cabin, people here are reminded by the view of Denali why they took this road and keep coming back.
It's just a slowdown. It's a, it's a way to get out of town and the pressures, and you take the time to drive out here and get a different mindset. And when you're here, you can just be yourself.
And just being yourself is the real destination they found on the Petersville Road.
Bumpy or not, it looked like they were having a great time. Still ahead, it was built with a purpose. Now anyone can drive deep into northern Alaska. You just have to be prepared. It's a more than 400-mile road, originally built to haul equipment to the oil fields of Prudhoe Bay on Alaska's North Slope. Now, anyone can drive that scenic highway, but with very few services, you need to be prepared. Cameron McIntosh and photojournalist Eric Soule take us on the Dalton Highway.
As far as highways go, this one is definitely one of the roads less traveled. This is where the legendary 416-mile Dalton Highway begins, and over the next couple days, myself and photojournalist Eric Soule will be following in the footsteps of the people who have left behind these stickers.
Pavement ends. Headlights on for the next 400 miles. No services. These are not signs you typically see on a highway. But there is no other highway like the Dalton.
Off the James Dalton Highway. Here we go.
This is for James.
Named after renowned Arctic engineer James W. Dalton, the road was constructed in 1974 to help build the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. And because hundreds of trucks still use it daily to bring supplies and equipment to Alaska's oil and gas fields, it's also known by its original name, the North Slope Haul Road.
This stretch on the Dalton Highway is the longest stretch along the entire Pan-American Highway where you don't encounter small towns, small villages, just mostly devoid of any resources.
Even though large sections of the road are paved, the Dalton has a formidable reputation for smashing windshields and shredding tires. Originally a private road owned by oil companies, the highway was closed to the public until 1982.
The Edward Patton Bridge marks the spot where the Hall Road and the mighty Yukon River cross paths. Now this used to be as far as you could get along the Dalton Highway without needing a special permit. When the road was later opened up, it became the farthest north you could go on a public road in the United States.
Nowadays, truckers share the Hall Road with a steady stream of tourists in both the summer and the winter. Businesses along the highway, like the Yukon River Camp, say they see many of these visitors coming ill-prepared.
Many people don't bring a spare tire or don't think that they'll need a spare tire, or even 2 spare tires. Most frequently, people who get stranded get 2 flats in the same day. And there's only 1 tire repair service, but there's no mechanic for a 500-mile stretch of this road.
In the winter, the Northern Lights attract large numbers of visitors from China. So many that the Yukon River Camp has changed its menu, which explains the massive stockpile of noodles. Still, only a fraction of the state's tourists actually make it this far north.
Across the street, it says only 1% of the visitors to Alaska come past Fairbanks, and so it said congratulations on being one of the 1%, so there we are. We did it.
Even in the summer, when the aurora is hidden by 24 hours of daylight, the Arctic Circle is a popular destination.
When you get to Fairbanks, you got to do the last couple 100 miles to get to that
if
thing.
you're that close, you've got to come to the...
Yeah, it's too close not to do it.
From there, the road twists and winds through scenery that would make even Ansel Adams envious. before passing through Coldfoot, our final stop for the day.
There are truck stops scattered all over the United States, but none of them are quite like this one. Coldfoot is the last spot on the Dalton Highway where you can get gas and services before the long 240-mile stretch to Dead Horse.
Our crew didn't quite make it to Prudhoe Bay, but they hit the highlights of the Dalton Highway of Coldfoot and Wiseman. You can find those stories on our website, KTUU.com. Check out the Road Trippin' tab on the left. Now we've traveled by plane and by boat and on some pretty rough unpaved trails. Now it's time to hit the rails. Channel 2's Jack Carney and photojournalist Sean Wilson took the scenic route to Spencer Glacier.
Hi, I'm Jack Carney. We're here in Whittier, Alaska, where we're going off the beaten path for Road Tripping 2018, traveling today by track on the Alaska Railroad's Glacier Discovery Train.
I've wanted to come to Alaska ever since I was first married.
That want became a reality for Ina and Philip Evers of Brisbane, Australia. The couple was lucky enough to win a cruise to the Glacier State.
Sitting there in a train, not having to worry about driving, but being able to see all the beautiful countryside. So Alaska was our place to go.
An opportunity to see any wildlife.
Railroad was hiring, and my dad asked me if I wanted to come back and apply at the railroad.
That is correct, over. Marty Weatherall has been riding on the Alaska Railroad since he was a young man.
I don't think I have a bad day all summer long when I'm on this train.
1, 2, 3.
Also, the Chugiak guides, they do a rafting trip, which you folks are going to go on. We'll load up rafts for everybody. Then we stop at Spencer, we'll unload the rafts.
Southward to the whistle stop.
After arriving at the Spencer Whistle Stop, we take a 10-minute hike to the water's edge.
Hi everybody, welcome to Spencer Glacier, welcome to Chugach National Forest.
Not too long after making sure we're safe, we begin to paddle out.
The glacier's almost 2 miles away. All these bergs come off the face. They're floating, believe it or not. I've been here for 10 years and the glacier's probably seated over a quarter mile in the 10 years I've been here. A good indicator too is if you look along the valley walls here on the sides, you can see a line in the vegetation where it's markedly different, right? So you have the hemlocks up higher and then you have like birch and cottonwood down lower. And that green line right there between the two shades of green, that's kind of the 100-year mark for the level of the glacier.
At one time, the glacier filled this entire valley. Today, pieces break off chunk by chunk, enough to where you can literally hold the evidence of its receding line in your hands. That's if you're fortunate enough.
80% is below the surface of the water-ish. So they mushroom out and they shelf out underneath. So they're much bigger than they seem. And this lake can get up to 400 feet deep.
As the glacier receded, it created this lake.
All the way out to the face of the glacier. In fact, in front of the face of the glacier, we're estimating it's 200 to 300 feet deep. The great thing about Spencer is that you are experiencing a really nice wilderness environment. There's no road traffic up here, obviously, because there's no road system. The rail's the only way in here.
We paddle for another 2 hours, seeing evidence of the ever-changing rivers and streams, even birds and wildlife making their home on this body of water, trees and brush doing whatever it takes to hang on to the shoreline and not become additional debris. 2 hours later, we hear the sound of the train, and it's time to dock.
We've got one more stop on our road trip and adventure, and this one may be the wildest one yet. That story coming up next. We're going off-roading once again, really off-road. Weekend anchor Victoria Taylor and chief meteorologist Jackie Purcell didn't let a few cloudy skies stand in their way of bear viewing in Wolverine Creek. It's about a 50-minute plane ride from Anchorage. But the real question is, did they see any bears?
As wonderful as the state's largest city is, sometimes you just need to load up the bush plane and get out of town.
Our adventure to Redoubt Bay Lodge starts early in the morning. By 8:15, we're in the sky heading toward the west side of Cook Inlet.
It doesn't take long before we're surrounded by snow-capped mountains and lush green forest.
Naturally, when the pilot says, "Do you want to see a glacier too?"
The answer is yes. Lake Clark Pass is massive, yet still has an intimate appeal.
And the views are incredible. Hues of bright blue peek out from under the ice and rivers flow out from every direction.
This also means we're close to Redoubt Bay.
Yeah, we're pulling up into the dock and trading our float plane for a pontoon boat.
Steve Stringham is our personal tour guide for the day.
He's been studying bears since 1969.
I've had females that trust me so much that they leave their cubs with me when they go off to fish. I'm fascinated by intelligence and innovativeness, and the more we study animals, the more strange and wonderful we find them.
We separate from the other visitors.
We have radios, and if they see a bear, they call us. If I see a bear, I call them. And that way we're not all crowded in one spot waiting to see where the bears show up.
Stringham makes it clear we're in bear country, but it's obvious we found a relaxing getaway too.
We ride into the first cove. The water is calm. 2 trumpeter swans greet us, and Jackie even makes a little music with the birds.
Well, part of the experience includes a look at the wildlife and foliage in the area.
Because as many will tell you, a bear sighting isn't guaranteed.
The first summer I was here, only about 50% of the trips people got to see bears all summer long. Now we see bears almost every trip.
We make our way to Diving Bear Cove at Wolverine Creek.
Perched on treetops and along the water, the iconic eagles wait for salmon scraps.
The fish are clearly here today, a good sign we might see a visitor soon.
I think we saw 4 different bears here yesterday, and sit here for a while and see what shows up.
I've got to give props to Jackie on this one. Armed with her binoculars, I was fixed on this eagle duo when I hear...
There he is, there he is, there he is.
So that looks like our 2.5-year-old male that's been hanging around. Malcor. Brown bear in the cove, brown bear in the cove. Tommy, do you copy? He was kicked out by Mama at the end of last summer or the beginning of this, in early spring here, so she can mate again this year.
Even when the salmon are working to avoid his grip, this young bear knows how to swipe a good meal.
Yeah, he'll eat the brain, which is full of fat, the skin and the eggs, and then leave the rest of it for the eagles. Well, the interaction among eagles there I've never seen before out here, so you're really lucky.
I thought that was awesome. I saw a little brown area on the hillside and actually thought it was a moose at first, but I'm like, bear, bear. Got my bear earrings on for good luck too, so hey. When you see a bear on a bear viewing trip, it's a plus.
It's only a matter of minutes before Malcor draws a crowd.
Even the sport fishermen are happy to share their potential catches and watch this guy's skills.
It's one of the spots where you can get right in front of bears. That's what's neat about it. You know, there's a lot of bears up here in Alaska, not many where you're in a boat and you can kind of safely get right up down at their level and watch them doing their thing, ripping fish apart.
While the trip is pricey, it's sort of an Alaskan bucket list you can complete in less than 8 hours.
So in one day you can come over here and you can really cover a lot of ground. You can go do what you think you're going to do when you go to Alaska. You're going to catch fish, you're going to see bears, you know, you're going to see glaciers, you're going to get to fly in some awesome bush planes all at once in a matter of a couple hours, you know, so that's what's really neat about the spot over here.
We didn't get to show you all of the stories in our Road Trippin' series. There just wasn't enough time. But you can see them all on our website, KTUU.com. Click Road Trippin' in the left column. This year, Road Trippin' took us to some hard-to-reach places, and along the way, we met some pretty amazing people. We took the road less traveled, and it made all the difference. See you down the road, Alaska.